In the DC universe, Frankenstein exists, but he's supposed to be a good guy, isn't he? This recap takes place in Superman, Super Monster 12 through 13. I hope you enjoy. 300 miles north of Metropolis is the small town of Hamilton County, home of the Hamilton Horn. There, Lois Lane makes her way to see her old friend Candace about a story that she had submitted for them. As the two head into Candace's office, Candace tells Lois bluntly that she loved her story and wants her to investigate a shell company that they have been watching. But as she goes on, a giant green man bursts through the walls telling Candace, "I have finally found you." Frankenstein pulls out his gun telling her, "You have eluded me for far too long, and Shade has a special place in hell for you." But just as Frankenstein is about to pull the trigger, Lois's backpack flies through the air, knocking away his arm. She tells him to let go or she will, but Frankenstein tells her, "You will do nothing but face the same purification." Frankenstein picks Lois up and examines her, and then tells her, "You are not in league with this one. You were only a human," and he tosses her aside. As Frankenstein walks back towards Candace, she shouts, asking, "What do you want from me?" He holds his gun up, pointing it towards her, and then behind him, Lois runs in, grabbing her backpack. She slides the Hellbat glove out, and then Frankenstein is covered in a sudden blast of fire. Lois runs over to Candace, telling her that they need to leave right now, and the two run out of the building, where they see Frankenstein's hover bike parked out front. Lois and Candace hop on, and as Candace sees Frankenstein walking out, she shouts that they need to hurry. Lois says that she's trying, but she can't figure out how to start this thing. But as the word start is said, the bike begins to hover and take off. But just as they're getting up to leave, Frankenstein jumps up, grabbing onto the side. Lois says that she's gonna try and shake him off, but as Frankenstein climbs up, an angry Superman shoots in, punching him off. Superman asks if everything's alright, and Lois tells him, "Fine, thanks to you." Superman flies down to where he punched Frankenstein, and he tells him, "I didn't hit you as hard as I could, so I'm suggesting you tell me what you're doing here." Frankenstein picks himself back up, aiming his gun at Superman, telling him, "You're wasting my time," and he fires! Superman quickly recovers from the blast, and Frankenstein tells him, "Every second wasted, the outcast is allowed to be free." A shadow then looms over Superman, and Frankenstein slams a tractor down on his head, and then he walks off. Frankenstein is suddenly stopped with a blast in the chest, and he looks up to see a farmer standing there with a shotgun. Frankenstein starts to state that he's not going, but then there's a second shot. The farmer begins to reload, and Frankenstein walks over and tosses his gun away. As he stares at him, Frankenstein pushes a button, and then he feels a tap on his shoulder. Frankenstein turns around and sees Superman cracking him across the face. Superman looks back at the farmer, telling him, "I appreciate the help, but you should probably head back inside and take cover." He flies back to Frankenstein, asking if they're going to keep this up, and then Lois crashes into Superman. She jumps out, stating that she had no control, but while she helps Superman, Frankenstein grabs Candace. Superman gets up, shouting for him to wait, but Frankenstein tells him, "It's time you learn the truth," and they hear a crack. Both Superman and Lois stare at a broken part of a face mask, and they look back as Frankenstein holds his sword out, stating that this is Krug, a cold-blooded murderer. A few moments of silence pass, and Superman tells him, "Let me get this straight. This alien who was posing as an editor at the local newspaper is actually a war criminal?" Frankenstein tells him, "That's correct. She is wanted on several planets." But as Superman and Frankenstein talk about what's going to happen next, Lois runs up, punching Krug, asking where is her friend. Krug says that she's fine. All she did was take her blood every now and again. Superman looks at her and says, "She really is a war criminal. Thankfully, it's all over. I just wish that I had known that this was a shade operation, Frankenstein." Frankenstein tells him that he's not really in the business of granting wishes, and that he radios back requesting a trans cell to his location. A few moments later, a pond starts to descend on the ground, and then as it explodes, he turns around and tells a figure that he thought she went into hiding, "My bride." Frankenstein's bride tells him that going into hiding costs money, and that Krug is coming with her for that bounty on her head. Frankenstein says that it seems his hand is already wrapped around Krug's throat, so she's gonna be coming with me, transpod or not. The bride holds out one of her guns, telling him not if she has anything to say about it, and she opens fire on Frankenstein. Frankenstein holds out his arm, now missing a hand, and says, "Just as ruthless as always." Krug shouts that she isn't going into anyone, and then she explodes. Superman shields Lois from the body parts flying around, and Frankenstein shouts that they need to contain as many parts as they can. Everyone starts destroying whatever pieces are close to them, and Lois says that it's like they're trying to mend together. And Frankenstein tells her, "You would be correct on that idea." But soon the parts begin to slither away into the ground, and Frankenstein asks, "Why is it that you must bring me misfortune, bride?" And the Bride says, that's funny, because she was thinking the same thing, and she punches Frankenstein. The two begin to argue and fight, and Superman has to split them up and says that he really doesn't care about their past problems, they have a job to do. Do you both understand? And they both nod. So Superman throws them back to the ground. As they both get back up, Frankenstein asks if she can throw him back his hand. The Bride picks up the hand, stating that he's lucky that that's all she shot off, and then notices both of their wedding rings on his finger. She looks at them and Frankenstein asks if he can have his hand back now, please. Frankenstein starts to reattach his hand and walk off, and Lois asks what happened between them. Bride says that for a while, their son had become a monster, wreaking death and destruction wherever he went. In a brief moment, he had come to his senses and he asked to be killed, and as his mother, she felt his fate was up to her. So, with all of the love in her heart, she killed him before he could kill again. As the conversation went silent, Lois says that that's a lot unsaid between the two of them, and the Bride says that that's always the case between a husband and a wife. Lois then hops back onto Frankenstein's hoverbike and says that she's gonna go check on Candace while everyone else goes to look for Krug. But as Lois is heading off, Superman and the others set out. Clark scans the ground, stating that the pieces all seem to be heading east, which would mean that they're going to gather somewhere. Deep in a nearby lake, Krug starts to put herself back together, stating that she can always find somewhere else to hide. And after being put back together, she starts up her ship and flies out of the water, but before blasting off, she notices she isn't going anywhere. That's because Superman is holding onto the rockets, and Frankenstein and the Bride jump onto the windshield, telling Krug that they aren't going anywhere. After folding the ship into a small block, Clark says that they should just wrap things up, and then they can decide to do whatever they want to do with her, as long as he isn't in the middle of it. Frankenstein looks back to his bride and he tells her that she can have the bounty. But really, he wanted to tell her something. He's walked the planet and fought evil, which is well and good, but he's grown tired of being God's lonely man, and he's lost without her. Frankenstein holds out the second ring, stating, "One can be two, and two can be three. We can be a family again." Frankenstein's bride takes the ring and tells him, "Three can be two, and two can be one. And sometimes, one is just simply one." And she drops the ring. As Frankenstein leaves, Superman says that he doesn't know what to say after that. And Frankenstein steps on the ring, crushing it, stating, "There's nothing to say, except goodbye." Now, I bet a lot of you guys didn't know that Frankenstein was actually a character within the DC universe, and he's actually an agent of SHADE, which is an organization that is basically like another top secret organization within the DC universe. There was a comic book entirely focused on Frankenstein and SHADE, and Frankenstein was also in the Future's End book, though we will never speak of Future's End again. Either way, Frankenstein is definitely an interesting character. I'm not sure if we'll do much more on him, but if you really want to know more about Frankenstein, maybe we can do a Know Your Universe if you give this video enough likes. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel to keep up on Rebirth, Marvel Now 2.0, and whatever the hell else is going on in your favorite comic books, and follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll see you next time right here.